arms, and that's what I use for mine. And everything's hooked up to my Mac, and I just hit record, no video. So it's pretty mobile. I can move pretty much anywhere. So I throw everything in a duffel bag. So I can go sit up at the Grand 1894 Opera House. I can go sit up pretty much anywhere. So
wow.
Dude, that's awesome. That's kind of the goals we want to get to, is we want to have a mobile thing. But right now, every gear I have is also dual purpose for the business.
Yes.
And those microphones don't make sense for what I do. Currently, they will make sense later, but right now it just does not make sense.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Launching Us. This is a podcast where we talk about us becoming small business owners and the journey it takes to get there. This week we have a really cool guest, JR, owner, podcast owner. I mean, I don't know how you explain it. Content creator of Galveston Unscripted. If you have not listened to it, I don't even care if you're not from Galveston. You probably should listen to it because it's so much with history. And that's one of the reasons I love Galveston so much. Like, because it's just full of history. I think it's probably one of the coolest towns in Texas by far. Wherever, I don't care where you're from. I know I currently live in Lamarck, and I still think Galveston's the coolest. I actually call Lamarck North Galveston.
Yeah,
because I hate saying I'm from Lamarck. Sorry, Lamarck people. But I love Galveston so much, and there's so much history, and it's so unique. Like it's so freaking unique.
Yeah.
And so I think I ran into you.
Red Light Coffee Roasters.
Red Light Coffee randomly. I was on my way to work and I just like didn't have any coffee and I was like, I gotta stop real quick. And we started chatting for a real short bit because I had to get to work. And I just thought that was such a unique idea. And I think I told you that it's such a unique thing that you're doing on this podcast, talking about Galveston and the history of it. And I am like winded because I've just been nonstop talking since this thing recorded. But JR, tell me a little about yourself. Tell me your history and what got you into this.
Sweet. Yeah. So I'm JR Shaw. I really have no media background whatsoever. But I'll start a little bit earlier than that. I was born in Galveston, kind of had a fun relationship between Galveston and Texas City. Honestly, I grew up going back and forth between both. So depending on who's asking, I'm either from Texas City or Galveston. But yeah, so grew up went to high school in Texas City and ended up going to college at A&M Galveston. So this was in like 2010. So going to college in Galveston in 2010, being from the area, you have people moving from all over the country, or all over the country, all over the state, going to A&M Galveston, and they would get there and we'd live in a dorm, and I would end up being like the liaison, like showing them around the island, and kind of like the tour guide, I guess, but not really meaning to be. It was just like, oh, JR's from here, he'll take you around. Ask him, Really, I loved Galveston, but I wasn't like passionate about it at that time, Anyway, ended up going to college, graduated in 2015 and worked in the maritime industry for almost 10 years, and ended up getting out of the maritime industry earlier this year. But yeah, so started the podcast. I have to back up a little bit. The podcast is a direct result of something else that I started called Galveston Running Tours. So
Galveston Running Tours.
Yeah, Galveston Running Tours. Yeah. So
I saw that on your description on IG. What is that?
Yeah. So back in like the late 2019, I started Galveston Running Tours. And all it is like a 5K running tour through downtown Galveston and like Pier 21, the historic areas, like historically dense areas of Galveston. And I got the idea, honestly, from Instagram. I was on Instagram one day scrolling through and I came across Boston Running Tours.
Oh, nice.
And yeah. So, and I was living in the downtown Galveston area at the time. And when I saw the Boston Running Tours, like it's an ad on my Instagram, I'm like, what is this? Wait a second.
That's such a...
I think Galveston needs this, Galveston needs this. So, Are
you still doing it?
Oh yeah. I had one on a Sunday. Yeah. And I got one this next weekend. I got one 2 weekends from now. So yeah, we're still doing it. It's great.
I don't know why I imagine you with like a speaker on your belt and you wearing a headset. All right, guys. So this is the thing. We're going to keep going. All right, let's keep like, that's how I imagine. It's probably nowhere near that.
No, it's not. No, I keep it super interactive, super fun. It's a 5K running tour, but we stop like 20 times. So it takes almost 2 hours to get the whole 5K finished. But yeah, so I started that in late 2019. So just a few months after that, COVID hits.
Oh.
So COVID hit. So I no longer have to go to my day job office in Houston, and I can just do running tours every day of the week if I want to, because I'm working from home.
Yeah.
So I started doing running tours every possible day I could, just running ads on Instagram, targeting short-term rentals in Galveston, be like, hey, tell your people I have a tour. So I kind of integrated running and walking tours under Galveston Running Tours. So I did that for about a year and a half. And my boss called me and he's like, hey, we're going to come back to the office. So you have to drive to and from Houston Houston every single day. After a year and a half sitting at home, I was like, I need to find a way out of what I'm doing now. And I found this passion for Galveston history over the year or two I had been doing these running tours. And I wanted to keep teaching people about not only Galveston history, but history in general. Yeah. Because, it's something I'm really passionate about, education and history. So I have really kind of been a history buff for
I would imagine that you had to be more of a history buff than a podcast enthusiast or something, like to be like, this is what I want to do. Yeah. But I love that because it's something that I don't want to say fell into, but it's more like people kept pushing you to that. Being a student at A&M, which boo A&M, UT all the way. Even though we lost this Sunday, this week in Alabama.
But no, you're 100% right.
But nonetheless, I think getting pushed into that and getting I hate the word push, but you getting we'll say motivated into that area. I love that because it got you into something that you really wanted to do. And I think COVID, as sucky that season was an eye opener for a lot of people of one, mental health, got to take care of that. Yeah. Two, people realizing that I can't just rely on my job or the government to always pay for me or keep me in check or have a job. And so a lot of people through that time, develop something. I know that's something my wife and I even more, because we've always wanted to have a business, but during that time, it's even more we wanted to do something. And we were fortunate to still keep our jobs and not lose anything on the income wise. But there was a lot of people that weren't that lucky. Yeah. And so for them to see okay, what can I do to build my income and not lose out on life? Because that was the other thing that I think we all really appreciated, even if some people maybe more than others, really appreciated being at home, seeing your kids every day, being with your wife and kids or your family or whatever your situation was. I think we really, really appreciated that time.
Yeah. It's crazy how, we always think about it. It's crazy how COVID has really impacted the world. Every single person we've had on the podcast has always gone back to, wow, during COVID, I've experienced this. And that's what created the momentum for now. And so it's really cool. Also, Galveston is unique in the sense where there's 2 universities. Yes. There's the college, there's trade schools. There's a lot going on in Galveston.
Oh yeah. We were just talking about this weekend. Galveston has so much potential. I actually talked to, I think she's the interim president right now at A&M. I talked to her about that too. Because she's not from here. I want to say she's from Europe. She's somewhere with a really good accent.
Okay, she got a good accent.
She has a really good accent. We'll say that. And so she was just talking about how much more A&M has to be on the map. And I had to stop her and I was like, no. There's so much more. Yeah. A&M is great because it is a really good university. Scratch down, taken out of the podcast. It is a really good university. It really sets people up for success who's into that world. But then you got A&M, you got UTMB, which is a really good school. Yeah. I didn't know how good it was.
World renowned.
Yeah. Our GNL building is amazing. It's a really cool university for students, for nursing, for medicine, for health profession. And I think they just made a new school. But it's really, really cool. And then you have Galveston College, which sets up a lot of locals for nursing, for welding, for anything trade school wise. And then not that
and
far.
Basics, they have the softball teams. They have, there's just so much on the island. Not far away, you have Clear Lake, you have another college.
Mainland, you have UH. It's just, there's so much more in this area than just one school. Yeah. And it's always crazy how it doesn't get that much highlight.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
It doesn't really get that much highlight unless you look for it. Yeah. For a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, that's just Seawolf Park over there. And then ain't nothing over there.
Yeah. Well, to that exact point of all these amazing universities being in Galveston, it's overlooked a lot by a lot of people, including and especially the people who live there who are starting businesses.
Yeah.
So you have A&M and UTMB that are growing like crazy, and you have like a much younger population moving. And as Galveston grows and the investment is moving into Galveston, those younger people are staying. So it's completely changing the demographic of Galveston.
Yeah.
Which kind of
so much.
Yeah, it's so much.
One time we were literally driving down this really okay. I will say this. I grew up in Galveston as well. And there was a very clear space in Galveston that I was not allowed to drive over. I was 16 years old. My dad said I was not allowed to drive into
Broadway.
Do not cross Broadway. It was literally you have to stay from 53rd that way to like 103rd. Like you can't go anywhere.
She was definitely the West Side person.
And my dad was like, you are not gonna go on that side of Broadway. So one day my husband and I were driving and we're like trying to get back, and all those roads were closed and they're doing all this work. And I look
when they were
around
working on Broadway,
and there's, this just petite little cute girl walking with her dog across the street. And I was like, in this neighborhood?
Oh, yeah.
And Juan and I just we're like, okay, so
times has changed.
Things are changing.
Yes.
I mean, it's still Galveston, so you still have your areas.
Yeah.
But Galveston has changed so much. Honestly, within the last 10, 15 years.
It still is fast.
And so, I mean, it's not the same island that I remember growing up in the 80s and the early 90s. Even more like my older sisters and stuff. Galveston is not the same to them anymore. Like it has changed so much.
Yeah.
And for the better. Like there's been a lot of pros that came from Hurricane Ike, from COVID, like a lot of stuff that has just elevated. And a good thing that I love is that I see a lot of locals starting their own businesses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And thriving. Like a lot of them are really thriving and growing so well. One, because I think Galveston does a really good job on supporting their locals.
100%.
We love the spot.
Yeah.
Like it's an amazing burger place, and he's done so much more. I can't wait to have him on the podcast someday. I'm gonna get you guys. But I love having not only that, but like then you have like Lolo Kai's, which is downtown. They do a really good job. People love their stuff. Yes. What's the other one? I can't think of the name right now, but there's a burger place, the cafe. It's right down the street from Lolo Kai's, and now I'm missing on the name, and all this is going to get taken out of the
burger
podcast. But there are tons. I'll jump to that. There's
cut that one out.
Yeah, all that would be taken off. There's tons of places. I mean, even local boutiques on the island. Like people love shopping at island on the island, and
they love to buy their homes from islanders.
Absolutely.
I can't. There's so many realtors who are amazing, and they are right there local, and they're the ones that are being sought after.
Can I just say something? I have to say something about realtors, first of all. So the way we met our realtor when we bought our house a couple years ago, I was on Zillow, and I was on the house I liked on Zillow, and I accidentally hit contact realtor button. And what do you know? It starts to call the realtor right away. Yeah. I'm like, what is going on? Anyway, it went through. I tried to hang up. It went through. I get a call back, and the realtor called me back. I'm not going to say her name, but she's amazing. She's beautiful, and beautiful soul, I mean, but she's beautiful too.
Yeah.
And
don't come get him.
Yeah. No, my wife loves her too, so we're okay. And anyway, we're still friends with her to this day. And she's not from Galveston, but she is fully like taken on that Galveston, like we're here, we're gonna help you out. She's amazing. But and that's not just realtors, that's all people, a lot of people in Galveston. It's like the culture there.
There's a huge support, and it's one of the biggest things that I love about being part of the island.
And I know this sounds weird, and a lot of people, there's days that I go into Walmart and I'm like, I don't want to see everybody. But when you go into Walmart in Galveston, or you go into
Kroger, maybe.
At 11 o'clock at night, when you're going to get ice cream and you see everybody at Kroger's, that is definitely I mean, it's nice to be like, oh, I haven't seen you in a hot minute.
Yeah, I know we're gushing over Galveston Island, and you're probably watching us not from Galveston. I'm pretty sure this happens in your town too, but just Galveston's better than you. Sorry about that. But one of the reasons that we definitely invited you onto the podcast, because we went on a binge about Galveston, is that you're starting Galveston Unscripted. Tell us a little bit about Galveston Unscripted.
Yeah, so told you guys about the running tour. That was Galveston Unscripted is a direct evolution from that running tour. So essentially, whenever I was called back into the office, I wanted to continue teaching people about Galveston history and kind of like change that negative connotation and of Galveston, that stigma that Galveston has from the 90s and early 2000s even. And all I wanted to do originally was create an audio guide that you could follow along and go on the running tour for free. That's all I wanted to do originally. Wow. So all I needed to do was create a website and then figure out how to record whatever I was saying at those designated running tour stops and put it on a website. That's all I wanted to do. But as I was doing research in where am I going to like host this audio, I found a podcast, basically, what do you call it? Not repository, but wherever your podcast host.
Yeah.
Found a podcast host called Buzzsprout. That's what I used to host my podcast. And
not a plug.
Yeah, not a plug, but it's maybe a sponsorship, Buzzsprout. And it was pushed to directories. So I just pushed all that audio as I created those audio tours. I pushed all that to all the podcast directories. Yeah. So long story short, about a month later, I'm checking the analytics, and the podcast is getting a lot more traffic than the website.
Wow.
It's in the website and the audio tours. And all I'm doing to drive traffic to the podcast and audio tour is social media. That's it. Maybe 2 or 3 months later, I keep building, keep expanding, keep adding to the audio tour and podcast. And I made some top Spotify playlist, and that just shot things through the roof. Wow. And then shortly after that, I implemented interviews. So we have a lot of interviews on there now. Yeah. But October of last year was my first interview with Doug McLean on a statue down there in Galveston. And we basically talked about what the statue means and the significance behind why it's there in the first place, and how it ties into other aspects of Galveston history.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been pretty good. So maybe like 5-6 months after that, I ended up entering into a partnership with Visit Galveston, and now Galveston Unscripted is the official podcast of Galveston.
Wow.
So,
that's insane.
Yeah. Freaking amazing. Like that's huge. That's I do a lot of talking.
Do you do the IG Galveston as well?
No.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah, no, I don't do. I do Galveston photography. That's my other Instagram page.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So that's what I do.
Wow. So what would you say is the thing that you've learned the most in the season of like starting to interview people? What is the thing that you're just
the thing I learned the most is don't talk about the content before you record the content when you have interviews.
Yeah, that's
true. Like rule number one whenever you have an interview. But no, like I have no media background, so man, when you ask what have I learned the most,
so
like this whole YouTube University is what I've learned the most. Go to YouTube. With YouTube, you can learn anything. It's like a full university of knowledge out there for free. All you got to do is watch a 30-second ad or whatever, and you're set, and you can learn anything you want.
Yeah.
Or if you're like me, you just pay for the premium account and not get any ads. Maybe I'll do that. Just an idea out there, guys. I hate ads, and it's one of the reasons my kids use my YouTube account, because if they see an ad, they're gonna click on it and download a new app on their iPad. And so my algorithm is all jacked up from Mr. Beast to Minecraft videos to random videos about other stuff to camera stuff to this and this podcast and that podcast. So it's like a mixture of stuff that it's so weird to look at my algorithm, but it keeps my kids off certain stuff and it helps them not have ads on their TV. So just a plug for YouTube. You just pay for it, David Gomez. He keeps asking for my account. No, but I think it's so cool that you have this account, that you're pushing for it. I think it's cool, like, that you went to be the #1 podcast of Galveston and now the official podcast of Galveston. I think that's so nuts. Like that it took something like this history wise. And I think it's mostly because people just love Galveston as much as we do.
Yeah. And there's so much history there, right?
Yeah, and because they love the history, they want to know more, and they don't want to do the research.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically it. They don't want to do the research. And because you did all the research, they're like, I'll listen to it. Yeah. Like I love Jane Lafitte. If you guys know him, he's a famous pirate at Galveston.
And we swear,
I know a little bit about them,
treasure
but then I
there.
listened to your episode and I was like, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, it's nuts, man.
Yeah,
it's nuts, man. We dive down these rabbit holes, and one thing I try to do to make it not just like, if you've never been to Galveston, you don't care about Galveston, I don't make it Galveston specific, so to speak.
That's one of the things I love, yeah.
I tie it into Texas history and American history and sometimes world history if it pertains to it. I try to like go with this, scale it up, right? So it's it makes sense to more people that are just going through an audio tour podcast or listening to a podcast about Galveston. It's it's Texas history, it's American history.
Yeah,
so
I think it's the idea of taking something local and making it global.
Yeah, that's it.
Because it makes so much sense, and I love that because of that. Because it's not just, obviously it is Galveston specific because it is Galveston, but the history of it is so much more.
Yeah.
Like when I learned about Jim Lafitte and what he did and how he would like sucker people for getting slaves and taking like, and then coming back and selling them. I'm like, that's so much more than just Galveston. That's US wide. And I think that's just so nuts. Like, again, I keep cutting you off. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
You guys comment below how many times I cut her off. Sorry.
A lot. And it's often. I'm okay with it. He's really funny.
I'll push this one.
Yeah.
So going back to your running tours.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you, since you didn't go back to work, how did you go from...
So technically I did go back to work.
You did.
I did. So I'll tell you that whole story. That the full transition is actually, it's kind of a fun story because I was juggling quite a few things at once. So I had the running tour going. We're doing really well. Most weekends were booked, and then I had a few during the week. And if I were to go back to work, right, like I did, I just could not have those running tours, right? And it is when I wanted to. And I started charging for them because I did them for free for about a year just to get the route down and like learn what I was, make sure what I was doing was the right thing. Like I'm telling you the right information and we have the right route. So, anyway, I end up going back to the office. I cut out the weekday running tours and I'm starting to record these audio guides. And as I'm recording, I first started, I didn't even have a microphone. I used voice memos on my phone and found Buzzsprout and uploaded directly from my phone.
Okay. And a great way to start.
And literally I would take scholarly or historic articles. I go like Google like crazy, find all these historic articles, read them, and then basically come up with like a 3-minute audio guide or podcast, whatever, audio about the subject for approximately 3 minutes. And then break it down, summarize it, and then record it, upload it to Buzzsprout, push it to all the podcast feeds or all podcast directories. And then it just maybe a month or two went by, I ordered a microphone and the rest is history. So, yeah.
So are you still currently working?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, not currently working. No. So, it was probably, I was juggling work. I went back full time, maybe in, I'm trying to think what month that was, February of this year. And I ended up leaving that job in May of this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
not long at all. So through that time, I was doing running tours on the weekend as much as I could, recording doing interviews like through February, March, April, May, as many as I could, and just trying to keep growing this business. And at that time, I was going to speak for Texas Historical Commission meetings.
Wow.
Going in meetings for historic preservation, jumping around all over the place and still going to my day job and everything. So it was like a lot of juggling going on at that time. A lot of
juggling,
but I knew I had something. Like I had captured lightning in a bottle, and I knew I had, if I were to go back to work full time, it was never gonna come to fruition. It was kind of one of those moments. It's like, I have to make this leap.
Yeah.
And if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
So probably it was in May is when I left my job. I told my boss, I was like, I got to go. I've been doing all this stuff. I told him. He goes, yeah, we know. We see you all over Facebook, all over LinkedIn. People are talking about you.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So I ended up leaving that job and going all in, securing my partnership with Visit Galveston, which kind of led me to be able to leave my job. Wow. And then now I'm just hustling, creating podcasts and teaching other entities, nonprofit entities or other, whoever asked, teaching them to start podcasts.
Awesome.
and preserve history with podcasting.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
That's
what I got
really
going on
neat.
now.
So you also just had recently like your 1 year anniversary, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us about what that was and how that went for you.
So
Because I know you sent me an invite and I couldn't go because we were shooting a wedding in Dallas. And it was so much fun. So Shadi, if you're watching this, thank you for having me at your wedding. It was probably amazing. And your husband, Preston, is amazing. He invited me to go fly fishing. So if he ever comes, I'll go fly fishing.
I can't fly fishing.
I really enjoy. I hate fishing. Like growing up in Galveston, I hate fishing. Fly fishing is different.
Dude, I hate fishing too.
But fly fishing is completely different though.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so much fun for some reason. I don't know how it is here in Galveston. We'll see how that goes. But yes, so tell us about that.
Okay, yeah. So I recently had the 1 year anniversary birthday, whatever you want to call it, for Galveston Unscripted. And the reason I did that, as you guys know, in Galveston, everything is so community oriented, including this podcast and audio tour project. You have to get the community involved in order to get some of these people, like kind of get them out of the woodworks to come sit on the podcast and talk to you about some of these historic events, because they happen to be the right person to talk to. So you have to have community involvement. And I really did want that. I wanted a community buy-in, community involvement, because the podcast is completely free to anybody who wants to, wants to enjoy it. So I wanted to do something where I could build a buzz around the podcast for one, but also kind of as a thank you to everyone who supported. So I invited, of course, all the people who had been on the podcast before, a lot of community leaders, and some other people that I'm working with as well, just to kind of say, hey, this is a thing. We're out here. Let's go.
We're not going nowhere. And that's one of the things when I saw you post pictures and I saw it, you even had, I forgot his name.
Mr. Sam Collins.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I got to hear him speak at an event before Juneteenth, and he is amazing.
He's great.
Holy cow, he's amazing. The knowledge that guy knows. And it's kind of like when I heard him speak, I was like, he should be on this podcast. Because it's more than just Galveston, how Galveston's so important for Juneteenth. So much more than that.
Yeah.
And I
have to plug something. So you want to learn how important Galveston is to the nation. And the events that have happened in Galveston, go listen to the podcast I have with Brent Leggs and Sam Collins.
Okay, we'll make sure to put a link down below.
Do you have
check it out.
I'll get a link. Yeah.
And Mr. Brent Leggs is the vice president of the National Trust for Historic Preservation through the U.S. So we recorded that podcast right after Juneteenth. But it's a great conversation to listen to, and
the guy knows his stuff. He knows his stuff. It's so crazy. I forgot what event I was working because I was doing the live stream for it, and everyone was talking, and I was kind of zoning out. And as soon as he started talking, it's like boom, he had my attention from the moment he started talking to the moment he walked away. And he did such a great job. I mean, honestly, it made me more excited to be a part of Galveston, to be a part of the history that goes along with Juneteenth, but also just to see him passionate about what he does. I love that so much.
Passion.
It's a good one.
Passion is, the passion's strong. With
a
lot of, So I invited a lot of passionate people to this party. We had over 100 people there. We had Reverend Jimmy Abbott speak a lot about, he's been on the podcast before, speaking a lot about Galveston history there at the party. Mr. Sam Collins speak, and I spoke for just a short time, thanking everybody for being a part of it. For kind of to be able to spread Galveston history and tie it into American history. It's just it's an honor for me, and I can't believe that I've made the leap to do this and preserve history through media and podcasting.
Which is so interesting because 5 years ago, to think that podcasting could be a career for most people is not even a thing, right? And then here we are after COVID, almost going on year number 3. And now like people like us are having full on careers and able to build a business off of, something that was said were for kids, right? So it's very interesting.
Or do you have to be like a Joe Rogan or a Howard Stern or somebody like to have a successful podcast radio show? But now like anybody can do it.
Well, I always tell people, I say podcasts are limitless. Like it is just putting audio into someone else's ears, right? So if you can provide as much value as you possibly can in that time, whatever time frame your podcast is or whatever you're providing, just do that. If you focus on that, then you're going to be successful at podcasting, and then tie in all other things like social media and getting it out and building an audience, just like you guys are doing.
Yeah,
you're doing great.
Social media is huge. Like, I think the podcast has really helped our career in being a content creator for businesses or senior photos or wedding photos. I think it's been really helpful because, one, people see my work weekly when I post. It also gives me the idea to practice every week. I love practicing video. But other than recording my wife sit on the couch or my kids jump around, it really isn't that much. And so this has really helped me out to like really sharpen my skills. And so like it kind of worked out because I was really like not wanting to do podcasts. I don't like the way I sound. Even though I have a couple people say, hey, you got a good voice. I don't like the way I sound. I think it's funny. Well, thank you. But also like I didn't know really what to talk about. And then my wife and I were really pushing this year to start our business. And it just came to me. I was like, what if we start a podcast about starting a business? We're doing it from the ground up. It's just like people who do the weight loss stuff. Mm-hmm. Here I am when I'm like 300 pounds. And now here I am when I'm thin as a rock. Like, I think it's a really good journey. And I love watching it because I'm like, man, they're putting in the hustle. They're putting in the work. And now they're thin and they're healthy and they're living their life. I think it's just a really cool story. And I was like, why can't that be for businesses? Somebody who just doesn't feel like a 9-to-5 job is something that's meant for them. Someone who wants to be more home with their kids or be with their family, but not be poor. Mm-hmm. I mean, just having that
and prepare and propel the things that they're already doing.
Yeah.
Right? So like we were already doing photography and videography, and this just propelled it, right?
Yeah.
So we were able to, and the weird thing is that we've always preferred to work with businesses.
Yeah.
And
always.
through this, because we're bringing on businesses, we started working more with businesses and real estate. So I think that that's fantastic. Tying that into, can you talk a little bit more about how you teach podcasts through history?
Yeah. So, actually you mentioned GNL earlier. So I actually went over there, had a meeting with them and, I got a tour of the Galveston National Lab, which was amazing to see. They're actually starting.
It's huge.
Yeah. They're actually starting a podcast here pretty soon, interviewing the doctors that come through, this world-renowned university, UTMB. And so, we got together and I basically just told them, hey, here's what a podcast host is. Here's what it does. Here's how I record and just go through the basic step by step basic editing techniques that I use because I don't have anything professional. I'm using free GarageBand, so they have this Adobe stuff. I'm like, you've got me beat there. So you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And of course, just teach everybody how to use YouTube.
So how are you integrating the history into the podcast trainings?
Okay. Yeah. So I've been approached by multiple museums and libraries even and other larger entities. And essentially what I'm doing is just going in and showing them how to start from the very beginning. Here is how you record your audio. Here is how you upload it to your podcast host. Here's how you push to all these directories like Spotify and Apple Podcast. And this is all audio based, really no video. But one of these libraries that have reached out to me have hours and hours and hours of oral histories, and they want to do something with these oral histories.
Wow.
And one thing that I've heard a lot of on podcasts is people integrating oral histories from however long ago and tying them into a story.
Don't know what oral histories are.
Yeah. So essentially, you have somebody who is recording, talking about their life or a major event in their life. So for instance, Galveston would be the 1900 storm, or Texas City would be the Texas City explosion, or, the Dust Bowl. There are a lot of things like that. But that's a really big aspect of what a lot of these historical entities are doing and have been doing over the past 50 years is recording oral histories from people who've, lived, 100 years ago or more. So essentially what I'm doing is like trying to help them build a story around some of these oral histories and get started in making these easily accessible and available, because we can't forget our history. That's the whole point of me doing this is, preserving and promoting history, accurate history from people who have lived it.
Yeah.
So, that's essentially what I'm doing.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
that's really beautiful.
That's really cool.
Especially since, maybe these tapes and I'm going to say CDs,
Yeah.
are probably tucked away in a file somewhere. And that's incredible.
That's the thing. You know, I'm getting invited to a lot of these places and they have these archives bigger than this room. And they have so much stuff in there, like these oral histories or just documents, and they don't know what to do with them. Yeah. They're like, we don't know what to do. They're just kind of sitting in here and they're preserved. But the promotional part, they're sitting in an archive in a closet. We need to get this stuff out into the world, especially with kind of stuff going on now. We have to learn from history, right? Yeah. And, you know, if you look at a lot of things are either censored or swept under the rug and have been for eternity. Decades, and the only way to combat that is to tell the full story, tell the truth and whole story. So my goal now is to, whoever wants to do this, is start putting this history and these stories, put them out into the open and make them free and accessible to everybody. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. That's one of the things that we have, like part of our business is that your story matters. And we just want to help you share that in a digital world. And I think that's so cool to have these people share their stories. It's the same reason that we always tell people to film your weddings. Don't just take pictures of it, film it, because you're going to remember these moments of people talking or whatever it is. You're going to remember these moments for years to come, because a photo is great. It really is. But other than hanging it on your wall or putting it in a book, that's it. Exactly. I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, we've been married for 11 years and I just printed a book. Like it wasn't that a big deal to me. But having it recorded and documented, something like that, it makes it a longer experience for years to come. Yeah. And it's one of those things I really, really love. And I love that idea of sharing these stories, especially whatever their story is. If it's
and to think someone from maybe 60 years ago is sharing their story, and their daughter today maybe have lost their parent or something, or listening to their voice for the first time in 5 or 6 years. That's so impactful.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know, so I go to church on the island. We go to New Life Fellowship right on 61st Street. No plug, but if you want to go, sure. But years ago, and I don't know how true this is, I'm taking my wife's word on this, but apparently her grandfather came down and started the church years ago.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know how true. I'm not calling my wife a liar, guys. I'm not.
Many of my cousins, they came from them. They're all older. I'm the youngest of many.
So, but with no documented proof, it's hard for me to believe it, but I love to believe it. I really do. Because the idea that this is a church my mom took us to, this is a church we now go to as a married couple. And this is also now a church all my kids go to. Like, to think about that lineage of years ago, her grandfather came, started a church in Galveston Island, which was literally nothing. And now we're a pretty good sized church.
And decades later,
my kids are there. Like, I just think the history on that is so beautiful that I tell people that's the truth. I don't care if it is or not. I do care if it is or not, but I just tell people it is. And so it's one of those things that, like, having that history and having that documented is such a huge thing. I love that.
So if you guys don't know, we are very excited because you've been actually nominated and put on the 40 Under 40 through the Galveston Daily News. It is a huge accomplishment for many locals here, business owners, people really doing incredible things in our community. And you have done that.
Yeah. It was definitely an honor for sure. But I'll be honest, when I first started like doing this like little podcast project, this audio tour project, I was like, when I first thought of it, I was like, why isn't anyone else doing this? Because it's like honestly really simple. Step 1, 2, 3, like just do it.
Super simple.
But I realized the importance of it pretty early on, like late last year. And when I first got a little nomination, your nominated email, I'll be honest, I was like, I've been putting a lot of work in this, and I would be kind of upset if I didn't win 40 Under 40.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. Like I know what goes on for the video aspects and all this stuff. Plus on having other stuff going on, you doing the audio part, but I think about the amount of work you're doing on the history side. Because I come unprepared for these things. I don't know if it's obvious for anyone who watch these. I come really unprepared and I figure it out as we go. I mean, I have a gist, but I figure it out as we go. But you do so much of the history part of it. Like
You do so much homework on
Yes.
the front
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but that's what I enjoy. That's why it makes it so fun for me though, because I love reading, I love history, and to have like, I just read a really cool book. I'm gonna have the author come sit across from me and talk about that book and the details behind it and the stuff he couldn't put in that book.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it fun too. But I also call it
the details that they haven't. But I'm gonna go on a binge on your podcast.
Please,
just so you know,
please.
because I love when writers talk about their like the things they couldn't put in, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
For all you history buffs, this is the guy you got to listen to.
Oh my God.
For sure. We'll put it on you the spot, but I think you hold up, man, because a lot of the stuff you put has been really good. And I don't listen to a lot of it because I'm just like zoned out at some points because you really go into history. But I love listening to it because it's just, there's things that I know a bit about, or there's some episodes I don't know nothing about that or didn't even know that was a thing. And then I learned so much more from it. And I just think it's such a good thing. Again, not even if you're from Galveston or a Galveston person, I think you really should listen to this podcast. Eventually you'll watch it. We'll get there.
Oh yeah, we're getting video implemented.
But listening to it because it's such a good one. I love the idea that you started off with doing it as a run. Like,
full on evolution. And that's the thing. Like, I have no problems like completely pivoting and doing something crazy and new. And my wife hates it. She's like, "Can you just slow down for a minute?"
Yeah,
it's like, I think I want to do this. I'm doing it. So yeah.
So you're currently still doing the runs.
Yes, Galveston Running Tours. Look me up on Instagram. I have a website, killer website too.
Links will be down there.
Yeah.
You are doing Galveston Unscripted.
Yep.
Is there any other things that you're currently doing?
I'm always doing something. I do a little bit of social media management as well, just on the side. And yeah, that's pretty much it right now. But I'm doing a couple audio tour projects, like one in Colorado, one in here in Texas. So helping other people build audio tours too. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think it'd be unjust to go into this, but how has been your support group? How has been your wife, your family during this whole journey for you?
Yeah. So
because obviously she's endured a lot.
Oh yeah, she's endured a lot. Yeah, she really has. So I could not have done this without my wife, of course. Like, she's been the biggest supporter, and I have a little almost 2-year-old right now. So he of course he doesn't know what's going on, but I could not have done any of this without her. She comes from a history background, a master's in museum science. So actually, she kind of gave me the green light with a lot of this stuff to enjoy it and like read all these books and everything. And that's where she messed up, because now I'm going down this like rabbit hole, and doing all this history stuff. But she's been so supportive. So whenever I told her, I was like, "Baby, I want to quit my job and do this full time," and she gave me like the no hesitation. She could see how passionate I was about this, and then everything else that kind of comes out of this. Yeah. And she was like, "Okay, whatever you need, I got it." So, and so she's been extremely supportive. So, man, that's awesome. Really my wife is my support system for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. That's one thing that we kind of talk a lot about on our episode, is that it is so important to have a good support group. Like, it's great for any small business owner to have the passion, have the drive, have the means to how to do it, but without a really good support group behind you, it's almost like it's half, like it's not fully there. But when you have someone like your wife or your husband cheering you on, or your mom or your children, if you're a single mom, like having your children behind you, like, "Yes, mom, you could do this." Like it's such a huge like change in that motivation, because now it's not just, "Oh, I'm doing it because I'm really passionate about this," or "Oh, I don't want to be working for the demand no more." Like, having someone behind you saying, "Man, you could do this. I love it." Like, it makes a huge difference.
It really does.
Genius.
Yeah. Like, not someone who's just like cheerleading just to cheerlead. Like, it's someone who really believes in you and pushes you. That I think it's with like, I look at Instagram reels a lot. One, because I'm like trying to figure out what I can make, but I love the one of like, friends need to really start supporting their friends' small businesses. Like, they support those famous movie stars that don't know you. I think I totally butchered that quote, but
you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
I have a couple of friends that every time I post something cool, they're always resharing it. They're always going it. And I always comment back, like, I love it. Like, thank you so much for supporting me. They're also the same ones that aren't afraid to book with me for like photography sessions or whatever. Like those are the friends that I really love. And I'll cut them a deal sometimes, even though everybody says don't cut deals.
Yeah.
I'll cut them a deal because I know how much support they give me and how much love they share my way. And because of that, like we are where we are because of our friends, because of my family, more because of my wife. Sorry, everyone else, but it's more her. But like the support group plays a huge difference, like a huge factor for this. And so, I think it'd be unjust to have you on the podcast and not give you an opportunity to thank your wife, because now it's documented and video, so she'll be able to watch this for years to come. And so, but JR, I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Absolutely. Everything that he lists, he'll give me an email, and everything will be listed down below of which podcast to go watch, where's his website for jogging around Galveston, all that stuff will be listed down below. Again, man, it's just been amazing to have you on the podcast. It's amazing to have another podcast person on the podcast and his podcast be like 20 times better. I love it, man. And
no, I do have to say, I'm like a huge fan. I've watched all of your episodes, every one of them. I'm not kidding. I even went down the YouTube. If you haven't yet, go back. There's like 12 years worth of YouTube videos down here. So you better hurry up and delete those because they're on there.
No, I leave them. I don't know. Did you see the one of me jumping off the balcony?
I don't know. No, I saw a trampoline somewhere. I think. I don't know. I saw a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
There's one that someone randomly came to me like, man, you jumped off the balcony at your church? And I was like, yeah. And we recorded this before my wife and I got married. And I just remember if it's on there, I believe it is on there. Go watch it. It's really cool. It's me running up the stairs, and I jumped off the balcony and landed on a big old moon bounce. What is moon bounce? Air bounce? Whatever they're called. Yeah. And so my wife, here's a little backstory. If you do go watch it, my wife is like, I'm gonna go do it. I was like, all right, go do it. So she runs up there and she stands on tops and jumps. She did way more than I did. Like,
well, no, I ran, stepped, and then jumped.
Yeah, like I hobbled over it. Like I just like, you know, like if you jump over a fence, you just kind of, she like stepped on top and then jumped. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And when she landed, I was like, she's the one. She's the one. That's the one for me. Someone who can do that. That's the one for me. But again, thank you guys so much for watching our episode. Hit that like button, that subscribe button. And thank you so much, JR, for not only coming to our podcast, but being a fan. It means a lot to us. It really does. And so anybody who's came to me in the last 3 weeks and say, hey, I love your podcast, thank you. It means a lot. It shows that this is actually working and that my business is moving forward because of you guys and your support.
And also we're able to highlight some of the businesses that are here that we love.
So much more to come. So much more businesses that need shining the light on, because what they do behind the kitchen or behind the book or behind the social media accounts, whatever it is, it matters. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of share some light on you. So have a good one. Enjoy your time, whatever time of the day it is. Peace.